Welcome to the Angels Win podcast with former Angels broadcaster Vitor Rojas, featuring Geoff Stoddart and Chuck Richter. And now it's time to talk about some baseball. Victor, take it away.
It's time for episode number 21 here on the Angels Win podcast. I'm Vitor Rojas along with Geoff Stoddart and Chuck Richter. So glad you could join us on this Sunday. It is NFL Sunday, week number 1. Gentlemen, cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
A Bloody Mary
Cheers.
for Geoff.
Bloody
I'm
Mary.
doing my standard vodka. And what you got there, moonshine?
I got this is Tennessee Moonshine, and so this is a Tennessee Mary.
Nice.
Cheers, everybody.
Nice.
like it.
Cheers.
Hopefully, I won't go blind by the end of the show.
Love the football gear. As I stated to you guys, I was supposed to wear my Chiefs jersey. Unfortunately, I realized as I was getting dressed that I never unpacked it when we moved to Florida, so it's still sitting in. I have a box. I think I have like 13 jerseys to choose from, and going back to, I have an old Derek Thomas, Mitchell and Ness, Derek Thomas one, and they're all folded up in the box somewhere in the closet or in the garage. And so I decided to wear an old California Angels logo shirt.
I like it.
You'll see
I like it. It kind of looks like a Chiefs t-shirt, you know?
It's red. It's red.
Yeah.
It is red.
My cup is red.
There you go.
There you go.
Chiefs are 0-1, but who cares? You know,
It's a long season.
I
bling,
care.
The bling from the ring blinds you to the standings right now, so it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
Keep telling yourself that.
Shit, it's 0-1, dude. The facts are they are the defending Super Bowl champions.
Sure.
So,
No, it happens. Hey,
Yeah.
you know, after we won Super Bowl 50, we went into the tank as well. So
yeah.
I
What coach
feel
are you guys
for
on now? What number coach is this?
I think 37
Gotcha.
since we won the Super Bowl. Yeah,
Understood.
it's been feeling good about this one, though. I think Sean Payton's going to bring us home.
Yeah, still have the same
Hopefully-
quarterback.
Hopefully he'll be, yeah. Well, you know, when your quarterback is 5'2", it makes it tough to see over the line.
Isn't that right,
Yeah,
Chuck? Since he played for you guys?
You know, it's funny, too, because I was going to wear my Russell Wilson Super Bowl jersey, but it's just weird to wear that nowadays. I just feel weird. And then
Yeah.
I gave my Marshawn Lynch Seahawks jersey to my son because he's a big fan of Marshawn.
Nice.
So I just got this old style 80s t-shirt.
Like it.
Yeah, I like the old style, the 80s retro stuff.
I tell you what, I love those, the logo. I love the silver helmets. Jim Zorn to me was like super cool, you know. And
Yeah.
Steve Largent.
Steve Largent, yeah. I wish they'd go back just more. And you're seeing teams kind of go back to their history a little bit and bring some of that retro stuff back. Was it the Titans are kind of doing an Oilers thing, which is a little weird since
That's
Houston
cool.
was the Oilers,
It is
not
awkward.
Tennessee, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I don't get
actually,
that
I
one.
mean, Earl Campbell was one of my favorite running backs growing
that
up.
dude
Man,
was a beast.
he could
Yeah,
just run
beast.
over anybody.
He would truck you. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was definition of trucking as a running back.
But getting
That's
back to
That's
yeah, go
back
ahead.
when teams wanted to pay their running backs because they weren't on 1.5-year contracts.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so you mentioned Jim Zorn, Victor, and I'm not sure if I shared this before, but my dad was a huge Seahawks fan and living in Seattle, and I'd come visit from Southern California in the summers and sometimes during Christmas break. So when I was up there during Christmas vacation one year, it was in '84, they beat John Elway and the Broncos in '84, and then they went to
Lucky.
Miami and they beat Dan Marino in Miami to come back home, you know, and then they had to go to LA and they lost to the Raiders. But I got to meet, my dad took me to the airport and I got to meet Zorn, Dave Craig, Kurt Warner, Jacob Green, Steve Largent, Scansy, all these guys. And from that point on, I was a huge fan. And my dad, you know, whenever they Seahawks would score a touchdown, he'd be running around the house like his ass was on fire, screaming, hollering. And then, you know, I'm 14 years old running around after him, you know,
That's awesome.
high-fiving.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's kind of how everybody's like, how are you a Seahawks fan? You grew up in Southern California. It doesn't make sense. And
Yeah.
that's really how I became a Seahawks fan.
I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he had picked up a Lawrence Taylor jersey. And I said, "So you're a Giants fan?" "Yeah, of course. I love Lawrence Taylor. I love the Giants." He goes, "But I said, "Are you from the Northeast?" He goes, "No, I'm from Missouri." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I love the St. Louis Cardinals." And it's like you get these weird combinations, and usually it goes back to family, right? It's either a dad or a grandparent. I had somebody who was a Steeler fan who grew up in Dallas. And I'm like, how? I mean, you were born here. Your parents are from here.
Right.
It was a grandfather that was a Steeler fan, and just watching on a Sunday, and just kind of by osmosis, I guess, you become a Steeler fan. But for me, I grew up in Kansas City. My kids are Jayhawk fans and Chiefs fans and the Royals and all that stuff, just because of me and the Royals thing is because of my grandfather, their grandfather, my dad.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool that you get that connection, how you pass the lineage down as far as the fandom is concerned. Speaking of fandom, Angel fans have had an interesting week yet again. And to segue into what we do here on Angels Win, we talk about things that have gone on in the past week, and then we look ahead to what's coming up. Then kind of sprinkle some magic dust. We don't have a script here, but we're so glad you can join us, whether it's on the YouTube video portion of our podcast, or if it's on Spotify or iTunes, Amazon, iHeart. Thank you so much for listening and for indulging us to give you kind of a sense for how we see things and how we feel. It's all opinionated, and we try to shoot straight. So glad you're here for episode number 21. Angels going into Sunday's
20.
game. This episode 20 or 21?
20.
Oh, whatever. Episode 20. Really? What? I thought I asked you guys if it was 21 before we started the show.
Chuck
you guys
said
yes.
21, and I said, no, it's just 20.
So I listened to Chuck, the guy who is the owner of Angels Win, and his editor corrected him, and I didn't listen to the editor. So go figure. That's how I roll.
Always listen to the editor.
No doubt. Episode number 20. And if I screw that up in the open, Geoff will mask that in post editing. Angels, typically we record after the Sunday's games. Today, because of NFL and other commitments, we're recording prior to the Sunday Angels game. Angels rolling into Sunday, 66-77, 15 back in the division, 13.5 back in the wild card. I know those are irrelevant, but just to kind of keep it a running stat of how we've done things all year long and where the Angels are at. They picked up the win on Saturday. A pretty decent win. Tyler Anderson showed up, threw the ball well. And we'll talk a little bit about that Cleveland series. It's a 4-game set. But correct me if I'm wrong. The Shohei Ohtani, Nez Balelo press conference
happened about 12 hours after we recorded our last episode. Yes,
that's what I thought. So that was at the beginning of the homestand. The Angels were on the road. They started a homestand on Monday, and they're playing all day. As a matter of fact, they only have two more off days. Which, if you think about it from a pennant race perspective, right? Let's say they had flipped the script and they had gone on a run or whatever. Unlike some teams, I think the Rangers have like every Thursday off in September. The Angels only had two off days, I think, in September.
I'm looking, they have 3. They're off on the 14th, the 18th, and the 28th.
Oh, the 28th is the one I missed. Okay. So it's just, but anyways, I was just thinking about that. But this week, the Angels played every single day. They had a 3-game set, then a 4-game set against Cleveland. But let's go back to the Nez Balelo press conference on Monday at the ballpark. And it was interesting in that it was the first time the guys were back home to talk about Shohei and the like. And, I've said it on the show before that we as a group, Geoff and Chuck and myself, we have a group text, and we kind of go back and forth. And there's some things we say on there that are not meant to be published and or a precursor to what we might talk about on the show. And it's I usually kind of start it because I'll take a shot across the bow, if you will, just to see if they're awake and if they want to, jump in. No, but seriously, after I listened to the press conference, my take on it was it was PR spin. That's all it was. Like nothing new came out of that other than the affirmation that there was an injury, there will be a procedure, and something will happen in the future. Oh, and that he'll be ready to go when the bell rings. Shohei, that is, when the bell rings as a DH come springtime. Well,
and tell everyone.
Then, what's that? Which is everybody, right?
And tell everyone. Tell everyone this news.
That's the one thing that I joked with you guys about was because I think I asked the question. I haven't gone back to it. I think I said, what did you guys take away from this press conference? What stood out to you? And Chuck throws his one-liners in here. Nope, not close, not close, not close. But it was the whole the constant, talking to the media and saying, please share that news. Please get that out there. Get this information out there. It wasn't once. It wasn't twice. It's 3 times he did that. Make sure that gets out there.
He's a little desperate.
That's what it seemed like. And I don't understand why. Right?
I never felt as concerned for Ohtani's future and health as I did after that press conference.
Right.
It had, I think most of our listeners are probably 35 to 40 and above. So they'll get the reference. It had a very Baghdad Bob kind of feel to it. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was selling the sham wow kind of thing. I mean, he was laying it on thick. And the more that I listened to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's not okay. This is really concerning.
See, I was thinking Kevin Bacon and Animal House
after that, and he fucked up his oblique.
Yeah, that was later on that day. But I was thinking Kevin Bacon and Animal House. It's okay. It's okay.
All is well.
All is well.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that Kevin Bacon was in Animal House.
Yeah,
his first movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, ROTC uniform.
That's right.
Yeah, man. That's what I was thinking. And meanwhile, we know that he has an injury. I'd like the information that it was the injuries at a different part of the ligament than the previous injury. But still, you're doing damage to that ligament. And I get why you're doing it because Shohei, for all intents and purposes, a unicorn as a baseball player, and he's going to be a free agent. And so I get it. He's just doing his job. But that was I just didn't understand it. And what I didn't understand is that why wasn't there more information? Like, the fact that you said that he will have some sort of procedure at some point in the future leads me to believe that there is contradiction in some of the findings, or they're trying to decide. Like to me, everyone talked about, well, he could decide to have the PRP injection, the platelet-rich injection. I'm like, why would you even screw around with that? If he needs surgery, just get the surgery done and over with. And again, the timeline for he'll be ready to answer the bell come spring training or opening day as a DH. Well, wouldn't that behoove you to just get it done now? You're not playing for anything.
Right.
Personally speaking, he's the American League MVP. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. There's nobody on his tail. This isn't like a Cunha, Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson kind of race in the National League, like who's going to end up, on the hot streak and picks up the MVP. I mean, everyone knows that Shohei's going to be the American League MVP. So at that point, you're going to get those accolades. Everybody knows you're injured. Just get it done. Whether because as a team going into free agency, one, you're going to get all those medicals. Every team that is in line to make a pitch is going to have access to the medicals, and they're going to make their own determination on whether or not they want to pursue it or not. Right. So that information is going to be readily available, not publicly, but to all the teams and their medical staffs. But then Monday afternoon happens. He does a check swing, hurts the oblique, and now the Angels continue to put forth the whole, well, he's day-to-day, and he's not feeling good today. He hasn't played all week. Now, wouldn't you, in your right mind, absolutely say, hey, dude, just take it on home.
Shut it down.
Take it on. Go get the surgery, come back, get in uniform, have the cast or whatever, the arm in a sling, be in the dugout, do the thing the rest of the 3 weeks. That's cool. But just shut it down. I don't understand why
But
we've
been over
the Angels,
this.
because that's a personal decision.
Yeah. We've been over this too, Victor, in previous podcasts, where does anybody have a say what goes on with Ohtani, or does Ohtani just drive the ship?
On this thing here, that's his prerogative. Look, the player decides when the player wants to have the procedure or the surgery. I get it.
Sure.
What I'm saying is, and I like Nez. I think I've enjoyed the brief time that I got a chance to spend with him years ago. Pretty much a straight shooter. He's kind of a low-key dude. He's not out in front as always. He's not one of those guys that's always out in front. You hear from him all the time. So I love that reserved nature of him. But if you're going to come out on a Monday and say, everything is fine and we're going to do this, and all of a sudden he gets hurt, to me, I would think that the representation side should sit there and go, hey, let's pick a procedure and let's just go get it done, so that everybody, all 30 teams, see that, all right, his focus is now trying to be ready to go to answer the bell come 2024. And like I said, the Angels can't force him to go get the surgery. The Angels can't, say, nah, hey, stay away from the team. I mean, I guess they could, but they'd just be shooting themselves in the foot. Hey, Shohei, whatever you want to do, if you want to keep playing, that's totally up to you. What I'm talking about now is specific to his representation and the people that are guiding him. It's like, why at this point don't you just now step up and say, dude, you're the MVP. Let's go get the surgery done. And then in 2 or 3 days, come back. You'll be in uniform. You want to travel with the team on the road trips? Go ahead. Do your thing. But it's time to, wouldn't you want those wheels to start churning a little bit so that you are hitting free agency in stride, procedures done, medicals are done, and you are kind of getting ahead of things as you prepare for free agency and the pitches that you're going to get from major league teams. That's just my 2 cents. That's how I look at it.
I think you're right. I mean, from the Angels side, I can see them potentially not wanting to, as a, kind of hanging it out there. Hey, buy your tickets to come to the game. Shohei might play. Whereas if you shut him down, you say you're shutting it down, no one's even going to be looking to buy tickets.
That's
so
true.
I don't think the team can do that, though, from a CBA perspective. That's all I'm saying. It's like the team.
Yeah.
It's not incumbent upon the team to sit there and go, hey, Shohei, we're shutting you down. You could say,
sure,
Shohei, you're not going to play. I mean, you want to do that. I mean, now you're talking another PR disaster.
Yeah.
But you can't force a player. It's just like you can't force a player onto the injured list. Because if the player says, I'm not hurt, you cannot force a player to go on the injured list.
Right.
As I understand it. You know what I'm saying? So this would be
Anthony Rendon.
Yeah. Well, that's a topic for another day.
But yeah,
but he's ramping up baseball activities, by the way, that just started.
Yeah, I saw that. We'll see where that goes.
Ramping up. We'll see playing his PlayStation MLB 2K or whatever to ramp up for it. From Shohei and his representation side, again, this goes back to me being more concerned than ever. Like, do they want him to come back so bad, to try to get 50 home runs for the season? Are they trying to push that number as a bargaining chip, or as a part of the sales package for what you're purchasing with this
really
$500 million I don't know. Like, really? I'm throwing out there what could possibly be the reason for not shutting him down.
Right. I don't, Chuck. I mean, I thought about it, and there's some people that threw that out there as well, but I was like, come on, dude. I mean, nothing is going to impact the value that you're going to assign to Shohei Ohtani as a player, whether it's as a DH and or a pitcher. Because whatever contract you come up with, unless there's somebody that does just a short-term 2-year thing, right? Which you could do. I would do a longer term deal with the opt-out after year number 2.
Sure.
So in theory, you could just do a 2-year deal, right? So that he hits free agency at 32 years of age, he would be turning 32 at that point. And that would make sense because you'd still be able to capitalize. You make $100 million for 2 years and then still go out. You're rolling the dice, right? You're rolling the dice on what if all of a sudden the arm blows out and now you're really just a quote unquote one-dimensional person, and does that impact your? That's why I think a 5 to 7 year term, I think, is fair. I know there's going to be teams that probably offer him 10, but you really have to look at him as a DH first and then pitching second, just because you don't know what you're going to get back on the pitching side of things. So,
it's a wild card.
Sorry, John.
It's a wild card on the pitching side. I would say that the reason why the Angels can't shut him down is he's not under contract anymore, right? So pretty much Ohtani, whatever he says goes. If he was under contract for next year, the Angels could easily just shut him down, right? And like say, hey, let's just get the surgery done.
Right.
Like put him on the IL, right?
You can have that conversation, yes. But I still think it is all it's in the hands of the player and the medical staff. Like your medical staff could sit there and say, we side with the organization because we believe this is what's in the best interest of the player and the organization going forward. But the player still has the right to get their own medical advice and counter it, And so it's a sticky situation. That's why I said I don't want to get into the whole should the Angels do that. No, to me it's like why is it the minute he hurt his oblique that day I said okay, then just shut it down. But then he's not in the lineup today because he was in the lineup. They scratched him on Monday. He might be fine tomorrow. That was Tuesday, then Wednesday. Now it's Sunday, and he's still not playing. And it's like. I don't know. I just don't understand what the big hoop-de-doo is about trying to play out the last 3 weeks of the season. I agree with you, Geoff, to your point. What you said about the Angels or as the organization is like, I'm not going to say anything. It's like, he might play, which is a factual statement. He might play. You're not lying. You're not you shouldn't be in a position like you're going to try to maximize what you can for the next couple weeks, next couple homestands, whatever's left, until they do shut them down. And then at that point, you just deal with it. So is that enough on the Ohtani thing?
I think it is.
Isn't it? But I wanted to add something. Isn't it funny how the Guardians took 3 of the, best Angels players, their 2 best relievers and
best.
Well, air quotes, best, right? Well, at least the relievers, okay. But Giolito's just been a hot mess. However, it's like the Angels went away from taking 3 out of 4 from the Guardians. And I'll add, the player that's been on waivers twice and not selected, and Randall Grichuk has been the best player that the Angels, that other teams could have had. Yeah. It's this season and everything that's transpired over the last 6 weeks has been just mind-boggling.
Yeah, they might take 3 or 4 from a team that is, under 500 as well as they are. They have a 476 winning percentage. The Angels are 462. So, and the Guardians are still 2 games better than the Angels. Going into Sunday's game. But I get your point. I understand what you're saying. It's just they play in a division that's not very good. Just like the National League Central, unless the Cardinals were dominating it, or when the Cubs were, had some really good teams and there was some separation. The Central divisions just haven't been, especially the American League Central division. It's poo. It really has been for years, and that's why I understood why the Guardians did what they did. One, because they were in a position from a waiver wire perspective. Because remember, it changed. It used to be based on league, reverse order of standings by league from which the players were coming. Now it's all 30 teams in reverse order of record. Well, the Guardians were 5 games out at that point of chasing the division, and they were getting ready to host the Minnesota Twins. So I understood why they did it. It's like, sure, why not? We're going to suck up some money. It's not going to impact us from a CVT perspective, from a luxury tax perspective. So let's take a shot. Didn't work. I mean, that freaking day one, Giolito.
Giolito.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I can't say it. he crapped the bed in that first game against the Twins. I think he gave up 7 runs on that Monday opener. And that was the nail in the coffin for the Guardians in the Central. But it's hard. It's been difficult, and we've gone through this a number of different times. And of course, later on in this week, Luis Rengifo on a freak thing in the on-deck circles while just taking a warm-up swing has a ruptured tendon in his bicep on his non-throwing arm, and he's on the shelf and he's done. He's going to have surgery, and hopefully he'll be ready for spring training. And I get that it's like, hey, it's just another add to the list of injuries, and you can say what you want about the injuries, and I think we have, and no team has experienced the number of dudes that have been on the shelf. That said, even when they didn't have those guys on the shelf, they were still pretty much a 500 team. So I don't want to play revisionist history. Anything could have been, anything could have happened. Anything could have happened with the injuries. It's bad luck, no question about it. But I think we're all in agreement that there are deeper rooted issues, problems across the board from an organizational standpoint that need to be addressed this offseason. Hey, one last thing. I know we beat the whole Ohtani thing down. Listen, I'm going to preface this by saying, because it just popped in my head, I've been a fan of the Angels since 1982. I don't think I need to. Somehow I just need to do this PSA.
Your bona fides are strong, Victor. You can go.
Okay. I want the Angels organization to succeed. This year, there have been a number of faux pas that have occurred that perhaps self-inflicted is a safe term. Okay. The team picture earlier this week. I can't understand why, if a certain player was unavailable for that team picture, you would go out of your way to dress somebody else in that player's uniform to then superimpose them or Photoshop them after the fact and then walk said player a different direction. And so there's a number of things that I want to unpack here. Number one, if a player is unavailable for the team photo, fuck him. He's unavailable for the team photo. You don't get to be in the team photo. The team photo they didn't just come up with a date and time, like 20 minutes. Hey, guys, let's get a team photo. Hey, could you guys get your uniforms on? We're going to do a team photo real quick out in center field. No. This was planned. So if a guy is not available for a team photo, hang with him, right? You put on the picture, little note, not in team photo, and put the names of the people that are not in the team photo. It's happened before. It's not that big a deal. It's a team photo. It's going to be more than likely a giveaway item at some point. The 2023 Angels team photo giveaway or poster giveaway, whatever the case may be. That's my number one thing. Number two, as an organization, whether it's the Angels or otherwise, the individual that was unavailable for that team photo is one of the highest profile individuals in the world when it comes to baseball.
So you can't reschedule?
Well, that's an option. Why would you parade if the plan was, we'll Photoshop him in? Why would you parade the 6'4" guy in the Ohtani uniform through media so that they can take a picture of the guy that's standing in for Shohei Ohtani that's in the team picture, that's not going to be in the team picture, and then walk him out through the dugout and through the tunnel underneath back to the dressing area? I just don't. That's what I mean by self-inflicted. Like, why didn't you, if that's the case, why even say anything? Why not walk the dude around the backside through the bullpen area, put him in the team picture, walk him back, and nobody has any idea. But the minute you've got a 6'4" white dude wearing an Ohtani uniform walking out the team picture, people are going to ask questions.
Right. Maybe you don't put the 17 on his jersey and you can superimpose that on as well.
It's a picture from the front.
There's right.
Who cares?
And someone's standing in front of him. You're not going to even see the 17. He's got Trout right in front of him.
Put nothing in the back and say, someone walks by, who is that guy? Well, that must be the fucking new bat boy. Look out, that's a big bat boy, you know? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But the minute 17 and Ohtani are walking away from the cameras, it's like, of course people are going to crush you.
Right.
Of course. And it's like, it's those little things that drive you mad as a fan. It's like, it's an avoidable situation. You just put yourself into, and then you got to answer for it, which is on top of all these other things that have gone on this year. And it's just a brand killer.
Victor, we didn't see these kind of shenanigans when Tim Meade was the vice president of communications, right?
Well, I don't want to put it on Adam or. You got to zoom it's an organizational thing. It's an organization. To me, I don't want to point fingers at who made the decision, how it happened, whatever. I know where I understand what you're saying, and I had a conversation with Tim earlier this week. I get where you're coming from. I really do, but I don't want to, because we're not there. We don't know who made the decision, who said, yeah, do it, or you just don't know. To me, it's an Angels thing. It's a brand thing. No matter what, whoever made the decision, whether it was someone in media or someone above or ownership, whatever, it's an Angels brand thing. And the Angels brand continues to get kicked and dinged and slapped and just trucked, Earl Campbell trucking every week, it seems like. And a lot of it is self-imposed, things that you can avoid or try. That's an avoidable situation. It's an avoidable circumstance that you put yourself into. And it's like, those are the things that we were talking about a couple of episodes about. You've got to zoom the lens out and start making rational, competent decisions. Or if you don't want to and want to continuously, you guys know what I said on my text, if you want to continuously do that, then you can't be pissed with the repercussions. You cannot be upset when every talking head in the national media, local media, just continues to crush you. You can't, because you're doing it to yourself. You are the one that are putting yourself out there in that fashion.
There's nothing more frustrating as an Angels fan than having the whole of the sports media world crush your team over and over and over again. I think that Barstool referred to this as the most Angel move ever when they did that. And you just see this and you want to come back and support your guys, but you look at it and you're like, they're not wrong.
Right.
I mean, this is us. This is the shit we do. And it's infuriating, to have to deal with this over and over all the time. And it's like, come on, stop. As a text string may have said, stop shooting yourself in the male appendage. It's just stop.
Yeah.
George Kirby had an interesting week this week and received, and speaking of not favorable feedback from the internet, Chuck, thoughts on the M's pitcher complaining that his manager left him in too long at 101 pitches, where he then in 7 innings and then gave up the winning run, and they should have been taken out. Sure, absolutely.
Real quick,
yeah.
Just to the end of what Geoff had said about Angel fans and Barstool Sports and what they said about the whole team picture thing. As fans, we usually, when we protect our own, right? When you feel like someone's just taking a shot at you just for the sake of taking a shot at you, we all do it. We all jump in there and go, that's bullshit, or whatever. We go back at them. We say, no, that's not true. It's like that situation this week. It's like,
you had nothing.
It's like, all right.
There's nothing.
You're not wrong. Like you said, Geoff, you're not wrong.
Right.
And
you're not wrong.
It's hard to defend the undefendable,
And there's nothing to say on the Anthony Rendon front either, to be honest, guys.
I was joking.
Right. And it's not like we don't rip on our own team and our own organization. We do, but they're our team. It's kind of like family members. Like I can bash my family members, but God help you if you do. Like I'm going to say something.
Yeah. Chuck, you were talking. Sorry to interrupt on that question, but you lived in Seattle a long time, so you know Mariner fans. And look, I get it; they're starved for a winner, and they're going to protect. To a certain degree, they protected Kirby a little bit. It wasn't like an all-out, "Hey, that's our guy" type deal. But to Geoff's point, what he said the other day after the game about he was surprised that he was left in there. He gave up the home run. They ended up losing to the Rays. And he got absolutely annihilated on social media, not just by average Joes. We're talking about dudes with unbelievable pedigree in Major League Baseball as pitchers, from Roger Clemens to Mark Mulder to Jared Weaver. Kirby got crushed, and I think rightfully so. And it goes to that whole mindset that we've talked about a couple of times about from a development standpoint, and how it all begins the minute they walk into the organization and what the expectations. If you continuously lower the bar, well, of course, like I said before, starting pitchers are told by agents, hey, man, just max out for 5 innings or 100 pitches and you're done. You don't have to. So that's their high watermark, and that's why you get that type of a reaction. I was surprised he did it in a post-game presser like he did.
Right, and it's not just like former ball players like Torrey Hunter and Mark Mulder and some of the other folks that have commented, but it's also like the Pacific Northwest folks, like Brock Heward is a big guy out there, and even he said, like, really? Come on. And Mike Cameron, he just put an emoji up there like, huh?
Yeah.
And the diehard Mariner fans, man, they're just going to stick up for their guy, right? And that's just, and looking through these threads, like, oh, well, he's a dog. He pitched, in the playoffs last year and game 3 and shut the Astros down and blah, blah, blah. But really, I mean, for a guy to say that now, to me, it feels like he's passing blame on the manager, right? And he couldn't have just come out, I just ran out of gas. I didn't have it. I put forth my best effort, and that's it. But instead of throw his manager in the organization under the bus to say, oh, I should have been taken out, we're going to have a conversation about that. I mean, what the hell is that?
That's not a dog. That's what that isn't.
No.
Yeah. And not to be the old man yells at clouds kind of personality, but in the past you have veteran players in the clubhouse that would have already taught him that that's not something we do. Like the expectation is like, who is that veteran on the pitching staff that is constantly talking to the kids about, like the Adam Wainwright with the Cardinals, that kind of just passing down. Hey, you don't do this. Hey, be careful doing that. We all do it. We all find ourselves as the new person somewhere. It's like you get someone that tells you, hey, this is how this person likes to do this, and we prefer that you do that. And you kind of learn. It happens in all walks of life. It's just because we go to baseball or any professional sport that it's like, oh, old man yells at clouds. No, that's not the case. It's like, you have to learn what you can and can't say. And if you're going to go out on a limb and throw your manager under the bus, well, then you should be that way all the time, right? Like you are the opposite of that guy that soaks it up for the team or whatever the case may be. You're just a jag off at all time, like a Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer doesn't care what he says, right? He just does himself, and he whatever, screw everybody else until he gets called out on social media. And then he backpedals and apologizes, which is what Kirby did yesterday.
Right.
Got the backlash on Friday night, overnight into Saturday. All of a sudden, Saturday, by the time he's back at the stadium, he's like, that's not what I meant. All that stuff. But usually it's policed inside. Players, you have a veteran guy, either on the pitching staff, and you have a veteran guy for a position player to kind of say, hey, that's not how we do things here. You need to go do this. You need to go apologize. You need to go back out to the media and explain to them that you screwed up. But it all goes back to what the expectation is of these players. This is how we're going to conduct ourselves. This is how we're going to play baseball. These are the fundamentals we're going to continue to preach. We're going to run hard at all times. And if you don't want to do those things, that's fine. You could keep doing you, but you're not going to play, or we will find a different place for you. And you have to set the tone at some point, somewhere, for those things to happen. Otherwise, you get these type of mindsets of, I'm telling you guys, being in TV, you have the privy of having different cameras or different monitors in your booth where you can see certain things. You see pictures at certain times. There's certain pictures that I could reel off, Angels pitchers especially, that you get into a certain pitch count level, right? Or a stressful situation or a leadoff walk, and their eyes, you can just see the shift in the eyes going, looking towards the dugout. Those are I have no desire to have any of those guys on my team. Guys that want out or begging out or looking for someone to hook them so they don't have to suck up the earnings or whatever the case. I don't want those guys. Those guys aren't going to fight. Those are the guys you want in the foxhole with you fighting. And the flip side is true. Was it Friday night with Griffin Canning? He said he pitches one out into the sixth inning, and Nevin comes out to make a move, and Griffin looked like he was chapped. Now, this is a guy that's kind of gone. He's been a swing guy. He's started some. He's worked out of the bullpen. He's maybe that's his niche. But if the guy is starting and he's throwing the ball well, and the pitch count's manageable in a meaningless game in September, and you clearly see that he wants to stay in the game, why are you taking him out?
Right. In a meaningless game in September, Victor, in which Griffin Canning hasn't thrown that many innings this year.
Right.
And you're going to take him out and
for
not,
what?
Yeah.
You got to reward that kind of passion and desire to want to hang in. Otherwise, you're quietly preaching that it doesn't matter what you want or how you act. We're just going to roll with what it says on the sheet.
And Nevin's been pretty good at going out there, talking to the guys, and then letting them stay in. But I don't know. It seems like things are changing. Maybe I mean,
which I like, because there are guys that you, as a manager, or as a coach, or a pitching coach, says or sees, whether it's body language or whatever, a reaction to something, that you want to go out there and you want to get that sense from them.
Absolutely,
that they do want to sit. And there's guys that, as much as they want to be in there, maybe they were fighting a dead arm. They didn't have any life in the bullpen, and they've been fighting. Those 85 pitches was like hell to get through those 85 pitches. And maybe the numbers still look good, but it's like he just didn't have it. He just didn't have it. And they'll tell you, I don't have anything else. I mean, I'll say
Victor,
it
on the body language.
Those are the things that matter. And that's why a manager goes out there to get that feedback,
Yep.
Sorry, on the body language, we talked about this in previous podcasts, especially me. Patrick Sandoval. I mean, I still don't understand why this guy throws tantrums out there when his defense fails him, or he gives up a couple, bloopers and bleeders, or one skippers through the infield and he's pissed off about it. Hold your composure, right? He seems to unravel like on the mound in these instances. And I don't know, is that something that can be fixed?
Yeah.
Can somebody sit him down?
It's a psychological thing. It's a psychological thing, because you clearly have the stuff and the ability. We saw it last year, right? He clearly has the ability to pitch at the major league level and pitch at a high successful level.
Yeah.
And the year before too.
So it's one of those things where you have to get into the psyche of not allowing things to snowball on you. And look, excuse me, things are never going to be perfect. Things are never going to be perfect. And I tell kids all the time, especially young kids at the time, it's like baseball is all about mistakes. I mean, there's going to be, it's a sport that tracks the mistakes on the scoreboard. There's three things at the end of a line score. It's an R, an H, and an E. We keep track of the mistakes and the errors that are made in every single game for everyone to see. So they're bound to happen. And so to me, it's a psychological thing. You've got to sit them down and say, listen, you've got to be the guy that nuts up and picks up your shortstop that just booted the ball, or the right fielder who threw the ball to the wrong base, and now you got runners at second and third with less than 2 outs. Now it's incumbent upon you to shut it down, to pick them up, to put your hand up and say, hey, tap your chest. I got you. Don't worry about it. And if you don't get them, that's fine. That's fine, because you're not going to be perfect. I get that. But at least you're going into it with the mentality of not a defeatist attitude of like, shit, well, he put me in this situation. Now I give up a base hit. Shit, 2 runs. Of course, it was all because of this. That's a completely defeatist attitude, and it's the wrong mentality to have. So I think it's absolutely something that could be worked on, because the talent level is there. He clearly can pitch at a high level at the major league level, but something like that, and not to pick on Patrick, but just any number of guys, any number of players, it's something that not only you have to practice, but you got to preach it every single day. You've got to be on top of it. And it's not just on those start days or the days that you're pitching. It's every day when you're not pitching. Try to talk yourself like you're sitting in the bench and a game's going on, a game situation. Something happens negatively to whoever's on the mound, and you're sitting there watching it from the dugout or from the bullpen area, whatever the case may be. How do you talk yourself out of that situation of letting it spiral, and or watching that individual, how they handle that adversity, and like, what can you learn? Go to them after a game, like, hey, when you were in this pickle right here, what got you through it? What was your mindset before you towed the slab for that next pitch? That's how you learn. I mean, you've got to get that feedback, not only instant feedback from your coaches and teammates, but those game situations from the people that are out there experiencing the exact same things that you're going through. You're not on an island. You're not the only person that is experiencing these things.
Right.
Everybody's going through these things. Every pitcher, Garrett Cole, who's more than likely going to win a Cy Young, goes through those situations with the Yankees. So everybody goes through it. You know what I mean? Whether it's a rookie or a 15-year veteran, they're all going to go through bad instances. Max Scherzer's going through a bad little stretch right now with the Texas Rangers, even though he's dealing with a little forearm tightness. How do you get through it? Talk to those guys. That's what I would do. That's the first thing I would do. Talk to your peers. How do you get through those situations?
And who's talking
Randy
to
Johnson. Randy Johnson with Nolan Ryan. The story goes, I mean, talented guy, could throw the shit out of the baseball, wild as hell. Nolan Ryan went through that when he came up with the Mets and into the early stages of his career with the Angels. Mm-hmm. And so what Randy do? Got with Nolan, and got him straightened out. Hall of Fame pitcher. You got to talk to those. You can't be afraid to go talk to these individuals, not just on your team, but on other teams as well, or retired players.
Victor, do you think that it's that the Angels need to blow up the coaching staff, and not just the coaching staff, but I mean everybody, like not top down, but media level down, right? The guys that can go talk to them. It's nice to see Chuck Finley, who was a gamer, right? The guy threw 200 innings plus every season, right? And never wanted to come out of the game. Tim Salmon. It's good to see those guys in the dugout. But I mean, is Matt Wise, is Marcus Timms, are these guys the answer? I mean, and let me say that, and also say this. In our YouTube comments and a lot of our Spotify comments and iTunes, everybody is like clamoring, oh, I love Victor. We need Victor to be the next Angels general manager, and they're just going on and on giving you praise. It's great. So with that, I mean, what would you do if you were given the general manager position? What would you do differently in this offseason to just get this ship right heading into 2024?
Well, I don't like speculating on someone who is currently in a position that's not available.
No, I'm just saying if you were in that position.
Well, I
like Perry.
I think I addressed some of it 2 episodes ago, where I would clean house. Look, I'm of the mindset. I was of the mindset 3 years ago. I'm still of the mindset today, and it's not going to change. To me, you have to go get the best of the best and bring them on your staff. And if they're available, great. If they're not available, do your best to get them anyway. Okay. The second thing for me is I don't want yes people around me. I have no desire to have people that walk around nodding their head in agreement with everything that I say is the greatest thing since sliced bread. That gets you absolutely nowhere.
Nowhere.
Right.
I mean, if you want self-praise, just look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself how gorgeous you are and how wonderful you are and how you never fail. Okay. Having people that just constantly say yes to you,
Right.
to me, you're never moving forward as an individual, as a staff, as an organization. That's just me personally. I want the best of the best. And I also want people that are going to challenge me for the betterment of the organization. I want them to make me better. I want them to make themselves better, and I want them to make the organization better. Do I have a list of people that I would absolutely bring in or try to bring in? You better believe I did. I had it 3 years ago. I know who I would have brought in. That's not to say the people we brought in were mistakes or whatever the case. Look, hindsight's always going to be 2020, right? There's a lot of circumstances that, let's assume I had taken the position. I could be in the exact same position today that Perry's in, right? The team, it just hasn't unfolded that way. You had a run of bad luck. You had some awful injuries, bad PR, whatever the case may be. All of those things, you take Perry's name out of it, pluck in, Bobby Evans was a guy that was interviewed for the position as well. Bobby Evans could be in the same situation today. But I still believe that you have to go out and give yourself the best opportunity. And you do that by hiring the best teachers and the best communicators. And if you're not doing that, I think you're just doing yourself a disservice. And by teachers, I mean the fundamentals of the game. Guys that are both understand the development of a young player, what it takes to play at the minor league level, and how you have to incrementally get better every single step as you go up the ladder, AA to AAA to the big leagues, and what the expectations are, and people that can communicate all of the information necessary. And that includes the analytics side of things. So I need that old school individual that takes the analytics and meshes it with the old, and being able to communicate it and teach those players. And if we don't have people on staff that are capable of doing that, then we go out and find the person that does that. We don't just blow off a player, or he doesn't get it, or he's dumb. He's never going to get it from an analytical standpoint. No. You have, as an organization, you have to reach every single player that you have in your organization. I don't give a shit if you got $10 million as a signing bonus, or we gave you a Coke and a pat on the ass and a go get them with the contract. Every player, to me, should be treated as equally as possible. They are all, you hate to use this business term, controllable assets within your organization, especially at the minor league level. 150, 160, it varies the numbers of players that you have. To me, from 1 to 160, it is my responsibility, whether it's a player development guy, a scouting guy, GM, president of baseball operations, whatever the case may be, it's my responsibility to make sure that every one of those kids has an opportunity to make you and your organization better, regardless of what their status is coming into the organization.
Yep.
Because if they're in your organization, you owe it to yourself, to your staff, and to that player to get the most out of it. Look, and there comes a time where guys are who they are, right? You've tried your best to get the most out of it, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. And you cut ties with that individual, and if they retire, they retire. If they find it somewhere else with another organization, then they find it with another organization. Tom Grieve, Mr. Ranger himself, loved the man to death, kind of like a surrogate dad to me. I spent a lot of time with Tom, not only when I was with the Rangers, but post and getting ready for the interview that happened 3 years ago with the Angels organization. And he used to tell me all the time, and he's a guy that went from player to a sales job in the Rangers organization, and then kind of worked his way up the ladder to becoming the general manager. And then obviously after he finished as an advisor, then became a TV guy. But I asked him, I said, at what point do you make the determination on a player, whether a player's going to succeed in your organization or you need to cut bait with him? Because that's the most difficult thing about being a general manager. Because sometimes your heart wants a player to succeed, but your brain's telling you it's time for him to go somewhere else, whether it's the messaging, the communication, the development that's not happening with your own organization. And If it's because of that, then you need to make the changes in those departments or those individuals. But if you're doing everything possible to try to get the most out of that player after 2 to 3 seasons, and sometimes you can see it after 1 or 2 seasons, at some point you got to say, you know what? It's not going to happen for you with us. We're going to let you try to seek some opportunity somewhere else. And we wish you, and it's no ill will. There's no ill will. It's just, you have to get to that point. There are teams that hang on to players and prospects. It's like, oh, but he's coming. The guy, he was a super, he was a track guy in high school, and look at that speed. Or a guy's got excellent spin rate, but he can't throw a strike. It's like, no, either they have it or they don't. And if you can't hone it all in to make it work in your organization, it's time to move on. But you have to have people in place that are capable and willing to step up. Hey, this guy's got it, or hey, this guy doesn't have it. No matter what I think, I'm ultimately going to make that decision, right? But I want those individuals that work for me or with me to push back. I want the pushback. Open my eyes to what I'm not seeing or what I'm not feeling or what I'm not reading. If you're seeing something, I want to know that. I don't want to just look at numbers and say, oh, let's get rid of this guy. Let's get rid of this guy because of X. It has to be a collaborative effort up and down the organization. Maybe they have it with the Angels. Maybe they don't. I'm not privy to those conversations. I hope that they do. But you asked me what I would do. I'm open to changing anything and everything that advances the organization in a positive manner going forward.
Does that include trading Mike Trout? There's a thing that came out from Bob Nightingale that the Angels said,
Look, I love Bob Nightingale to death. I've known Bob a long time. But if you read what he wrote, there's absolutely no source to what he said.
Clickbait.
What Bob wrote today or yesterday, whenever he wrote it, is essentially what Nez Balelo did earlier this week. Spoke some words or wrote some words and said absolutely nothing. There's nothing to that, right? Would I be open to it? Absolutely, I would. I'm open to anything and everything that advances the organization in a positive manner. If Mike came to me and said, hey, this is what I'd like to do, or I'd like for you to at least explore it, I would say to him, I want you here because I think you're a big part of this. I want you to retire as an Angel. I want to retire your number. I want to hand your jersey and the plaque and everything when that time comes. But if that's what you want, I will do my best. I can't promise you anything because I want you here. I will look for the best possible package. If that package advances the organization in the manner in which I think is going to get us to a championship, and he's happy with it, and we're thrilled with it, as tough as that would be, I would absolutely consider it. There is nothing on the table that I would not consider. Based on what we've seen over the last 13 years, right? What are you hanging on to as an organization? What are you hanging on to? What has been so great of the last 13 years that you're so willing to be so freaking stubborn to hang on to? That's what you have to look at. It's like, open your eyes. Take that, like I say all the time, zoom the lens out. Like if you had 13 years of unbelievable 650 winning percentage baseball or 700 winning percentage, and you're in the playoffs every year, I'd say, hey, you know what? Hey, let's try to cut and paste to the next 13 years exactly what we're doing.
Right.
But those last 13 years, what do you want from those 13 years going forward? I'd love to have Mike because I love him as a human being. I think he's a tremendous talent. I think he's fantastic for the brand. And I'd want him in center field, if not right field, wherever the case may be. If there's someone else that replaces him, just like he replaced Torrey and moved Torrey to right field when he came up.
Right.
But I want him to be a part of that organization. But if he came to me and said, hey, I think it might be time for us to go elsewhere, I think it'll help me. I think it'll help you guys. Then it's absolutely, you have to have that conversation. As difficult as it would be, I absolutely would. Just as difficult it was when we were talking about the Ohtani thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I'd love to have Shohei Ohtani going forward, whether as a DH pitcher, DH and pitcher, right? Yeah. I'd love to have him. But I had to look at my I would have looked at my organization at that point, and maybe Perry did, and maybe got negated, any opportunities to trade him. We don't know that because we weren't part of those conversations. But I said to you guys, I've told you guys off camera, on camera, you have to do what's best for the organization. And if that means going out and getting 5 or 6 guys for a rental in Shohei and then making your best effort or putting your best effort forward in the offseason to try to re-sign him, showing him, look at the depth we got now, with all the young players we have, plus what we got in your trade, come back to us. I would have done that as well. Again, you got to go back to, tell me, what in the last 13 years, what are we hanging on to?
Right.
What do you want to copy and emulate from the last 13 years going forward into 24 through the end of time? That's the reality of it. That's where we're at, So
I mean, Geoff and I
answer your
have been,
question. Yes, I would make a lot of changes.
Geoff and I are so used to, like, when it comes early September, getting our NFL, hats on and our jerseys and T-shirts, because there hasn't been anything to play for, unfortunately.
Right. It's
for the
been
Angels.
salve for the bruises and burns and scars of the baseball season we've just gone through every year.
Yeah.
Or the balls.
And we're getting and you have, look, there's some glimmer of hope. There's some excitement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hoppy and Neto and Shanuel and Moniak, and it's like, okay, so if we can, how can we piece all that together? Can we figure out the Sandoval, Canning, Taylor Ward, can we figure those guys out and get back to what can we do? But to me, everything has to be on the table. To be on the table. And Perry's in a difficult situation. Perry's in a very difficult situation. He's got 1 year left on his deal. And so if he's not extended, then you really, you're going into a lame duck season as a general manager, and you're trying to put your best foot forward in trying to pitch Shohei Ohtani. And so that's something that has to be taken under consideration, right? If you're a free agent, I'm dealing with a guy that may only be here 1 year of my 7, 8, 10-year deal. And in a year's time, I'm going to deal with another general manager. It may not matter because he's locked up, right? But Perry's assessment of Shohei and his value may differ from the next general manager. You know what I mean? And so there's just, it's a very difficult situation that he is in. And same with the manager situation. Let's assume for a moment Perry is retained, not extended. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Are you bringing Phil Nevin back? If you're bringing Phil Nevin back, you're not giving him more than a 1 year deal. You didn't give him more than a 1 year deal when the team was up for sale. Why would you give him more than a 1 year deal? And if he's not coming back, how do you go out and get the right guy for your job when you're, as a general manager, only have 1 year left?
Yeah.
How do I give anybody, just any name out there, right? How do I give that person who has interest in coming to Southern California and wearing the A, how do I give that person a 3 year contract or a 4 year contract when I only have one? Because the odds are whoever I'm going out to hire, I have a relationship with, right? And sometimes you find a person that you've never met before, you interview them and you're like, Jesus, we click. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're wowed by that individual. But at the same time, it's, hey man, come on, I'll give you a 3 year deal. I may not be here after next year. Just want you to know you're gonna endure whoever the next person is as well. That's a tough pill to swallow to get the right individual in. There are 1,000 dudes who will take a job for the sake of taking a job, regardless of the situation, because they want to become a manager, right? But I don't know how productive that would be for the organization. To me, you either cut bait or you extend so that Perry can go do what it is that he wants to do going forward. Even if it's 2 years, then that gives you 3 more years. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out. And you can cut and paste this situation to any job. Go to Washington. Washington's been up for sale 6 months longer than the Angels started the process, and still nothing there. They've got a TV rights situation that is a joke because of the whole Masson thing with the Baltimore Orioles when they, they ended up moving from Montreal to the DC area. That's a whole litigated mess. And so you still have that ownership. Mike Rizzo's in the last year of his contract. Davey Martinez, I think, got extended earlier this year. So you can take this same situation and apply it to Washington. If Davey's extended, you get a new general manager. New general manager may not like Davey Martinez. Maybe they said F you to each other one night at a bar, in a team bar somewhere, and that relationship, so Davey's thinking, I'm screwed after next year. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different things that play into all of this stuff. And again, it all boils down to what is in the best interest of the organization? How do we get better in every single facet of the business and on the baseball side going forward without looking back?
Yeah. And I want to echo what you said about Mike Trout. In my opinion, I think, Geoff, you're of the same mind. I'm not trading Mike Trout unless we're blown away. The Angels are blown away because I want Mike Trout to retire an Angel.
Right.
I want him. I want to.
We all do. Not on a one-day contract thing where he goes, wins 2 championships wherever, and then comes back, sends a one-day. No, I never want him to wear another uniform. That's just me.
100%
for the player and the individual and the family. That's how I feel about Mike.
If it comes from Mike Trout, I 100% agree with your approach.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Indeed.
Geoff, we're over.
We're over. We have covered most of the mailbag stuff, so I think we can wrap this thing up. Couple quick things. One, I want to shout out Tim. For those of you that listen to the podcast, Tim's the young man that's battling cancer. He's got some scans coming up and a surgery next month. Tim, we're still praying for you. Your sticker's on my coffee mug. I see it every morning when I drink. Team Tim with a Go Angels at the bottom. And a real quick funny story. So last weekend, I'm in Arizona with my friends Lauren, Brian Thompson. We're hanging out. They're like, oh, you got to meet our friends, Terry and Ken. They're huge Angels fans. They've just moved out here from California. So we all go out to dinner, and they're like, hey, Geoff's a big Angels fan. He's got an Angels podcast. They're like, oh, you got a podcast. Where can we get that? I'm like, oh, it's on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all the platforms. I'm like, it's good. You should check it out. They're like, oh, we will. There's a pause. They go, by the way, do you ever listen to Vitor Rojas's podcast? And I'm like, yeah every time I record. So shout out to Terry and Ken Julius. It was a pleasure meeting you. And as you can see, awesome. I'm on the podcast that you listen to.
Hey, Geoff, what's in your Bloody Mary?
So I've got a stick of bacon and I've got some peppers in here as well.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
All that's missing is an umbrella.
Right. Well, I couldn't fit it in and not. There was only enough room for the straw so I could actually get down to drink it.
Nice. Gentlemen, good luck to the Seahawks. Good luck to the Broncos. Broncos, not kidding.
The first place Broncos?
First place after week 1.
The 0-0 Broncos.
I can't wait for you to send me a text with a picture
we're
of the
in first place in the AFC West, so looking down at the Chiefs there.
I love it. Well, for Chuck and Geoff, I'm Vitor Rojas. We thank you so much for listening to episode 20 of the Angels Win podcast. Until next week, cheers, gentlemen. Cheers, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Angels Win podcast with Vitor Rojas, Chuck Richter, and Geoff Stoddart. Go Halos and drive home safely.
I say goodbye.